their pleasure-seeking tendencies end up going off the deep end, meaning they drop off. Because truth be told, from a neuroscience standpoint, there's a consistent escalation that has to happen in order for that pleasure-seeking tendency to be able to continue.
We are not saying don't have fun. We are not saying do not go do enjoyable things. We are saying, are you doing these enjoyable things to mask the fact that you are deeply unhappy? Because if that's the case, you're losing. And I know that's hard to hear, but it's the truth. And before we dove in, I told you that
Mhm.
I wanted you to just follow my lead and that I wanted to play
You
a
wanted to
little
play.
bit. So
Right.
I want to play. I want
Let's
to play.
go.
I want to be devil's advocate
Let's
just for a
go.
couple minutes
Let's
in
do it.
this.
I love it.
I know you love it. I'm gonna challenge the hell out of you, and I'm gonna try to.
Okay.
Why should people care about losing momentum?
You know what? I'm so glad you said that because when I was looking at this podcast episode, I was like, no one gives a F about momentum. And
Why
truth
should
be
they?
told, why should they? Um, so when I go in and I think about this, I literally have to like stop myself from like wanting to like wring someone's neck and be like, "What do you mean you don't care?" But truth be told, I've been there too, and I need to make sure that I share that because when you think about momentum, I feel like, and as like someone who thinks and sees and talks in terms of energy, my
What?
f my feminine energy is like, "Who gives an F about momentum? Like, let's frolic. What is momentum?" Like, I just think of a train, and when I think of a train, I just think of, like, the mechanics that aren't really funsies, and I know a lot of people are in that energy, and when you hear momentum, it's not necessarily something that's as bright of an energy. So, to your question, why should people care about momentum? Well, when I reflect and answer that question, it has a lot to do with why does it matter? And this might, I don't know, we'll see, we'll play. Why does life matter to you? Why does it matter to live? That's what I would ask people. Because if you do not care about living, then I feel as though momentum wouldn't necessarily have as much value to you.
That's assuming that the purpose of your life is to grow, though. So, like,
Facts.
in that statement, you're making an assumption. Granted, I don't disagree with you. I'm just playing devil's advocate.
I know. Please continue.
But in that assumption, you're in that statement, you're making an assumption that everybody cares about growth and development in whatever the way that you are. And hearing the word frolic, it very much can sound insulting.
Mm,
Being like, oh, you're just frolicking with the daisies and you don't actually care about your life.
mm.
Why should people care about growth the way that you do? Granted, nobody can care about growth the way that
I
you
was
do.
just
It's
gonna say,
literally impossible.
most
But
people can't. Yeah, and that's okay.
why why should people care about growth? Like, why shouldn't people just focus on what's going to actually or what's going to make them happy and feel pleasure?
Mm,
Like, life is really hard. Why shouldn't they focus on the things that are going to make them feel good? And why should they invest in hard things?
mhm. Man, I'm gonna verbal process, and this might be a
Yeah, do
really
it.
messy verbal process, to be quite frank. But
It's
what
necessary though, Em,
I
because
think it is
this is
too.
gonna bring out a lot of good stuff. So verbal
Thank you.
process and let it
I'm
let
gonna
it
trust
let it
that,
rip.
and if you're joining in this episode, like, hang with us in this because truth be told, what I end up experiencing is people come to me when their pleasure-seeking tendencies end up going off the deep end, meaning they drop off. Because truth be told, from a neuroscience standpoint, there's a consistent escalation that has to happen in order for that pleasure-seeking tendency to be able to continue. For example, um, vacations are a great example of this. And
Mm,
I want to make sure that I say that I am someone who is so deeply values rest, recovery, rejuvenation,
Yeah.
and even frolicking. I think that that's so important. And everything in moderation is a saying that I think is really important. But to that point, where when it comes to vacations, right? A lot of people will naturally, like, life is hard, life is super challenging, and will book a vacation or some travel just to, have that dopamine hit, that oxytocin hit, that pleasure seeking
Escape.
tendency to get that, yeah, that escape that comes with when you go and have a novel experience, right? But truth be told, what I see is when people come to me, it's having done that, and then eventually they do it so many times and they need to escalate. They need to set the bar a little bit higher. So what might have been a small weekend bender turns into, okay, well, now I need 2 weeks to do that. Now I need like a whole month's vacation. And now it's like you start to like numb your senses of what pleasure seeking means to you, or what the good life or funsies means to you. And it becomes an eventual tipping point that I will say is the brain is constantly seeking more of that, to where your entire life starts to optimize towards that and actually doesn't build any of the fundamental skills that are needed to sustain a life like that. And so I could take this into the neurochemistry of that. I can take this into
Please don't.
the woo the woo woo spiritual aspect of that. And I think that I won't, right? And I'll play with you in this episode. But truth be told, I want to help um bring the sentiments and the statements in from so many people who come to me when they have lived a life of
Mm,
pleasure seeking, of funsies, of the YOLO dolo lives. They all come to the same conclusion that, and I will paraphrase, it ain't it.
no. I completely agree with you. I'm right there with you. I think the other part of this too is I was reading this book. You might like it. I think you would actually like it very much. It's called, oh shit, hold on, let me find it really quick. It's by Anna Lemke. I think it's called Dopamine Nation. Yeah, that is what it's called. It's called Dopamine
Oh
Nation.
yeah.
Anna Lemke is a neuroscientist, and she's also I don't know if she's a neuroscientist. I know she's a psychiatrist though.
Yeah.
She was on the Huberman Lab podcast, and she's done
Yeah.
a ton of work on dopamine and addiction. And
Yep.
the truth is, we are all addicts.
Mhm.
If you really look at the fundamental principles of dopamine addiction,
Yeah.
we are all addicted to dopamine. We're addicted to that rush of feelings
Mhm.
because we hate our lives. Like most people, you know it's true.
I know,
Most
that's why I
people
giggle.
Most people are deeply unhappy. Most people are deeply unfulfilled. They might not hate their lives, but they are not happy. And
Mhm.
so everyone is looking for things to kind of fix the way that they feel. And it's why they're just looking for something to make them feel good as opposed to growth, as
Mhm.
opposed to the things that are really going to create sustainable change. And now we are not saying do not have fun. We are
Not at
not
all.
saying don't go do fun things. That is unrealistic. A huge
Counterproductive to
part
the human
it's
experience. You gotta have it.
100% counterproductive.
Mhm.
In in order to have the most well-rounded, holistic, fulfilled life, there has to be a balance. It's
Mm.
an art, it's a science, it's understanding how much play along with how much growth, along with how much of honestly, sometimes just enduring the suck of certain things. Like,
Facts.
when you just quote unquote take a summer off, or when you just kinda let loose and let go because you're over it, the impact of that is you're teaching yourself that, well, this is just the way that it is, and I'm just gonna do what I can to numb it,
Mhm.
as opposed to trying to make my life somewhat better, trying to make my life more tolerable, and God forbid, actually more enjoyable and fulfilling. Like true joy, not just pleasure, right?
No,
Pleasure is a part of it. We do need pleasure. Like
1000%.
when I hammer food at your house tonight,
I
I'm gonna
say,
be in
That
pleasure
flatbread,
extension zone.
delicious barbecue
Listen,
chicken pizza, she's coming at us hot, and I can't wait
oh,
to share with you how amazing
oh,
that is. We're gonna be
but I
dopamine
had
nation there.
hell yeah.
Hi, everybody. I wanted to jump on here. My name is Julie, and I wanted to give a huge shout out to Evolve Ventures and to my coaching with Bianca. I'm like many of you. It's like I've read all the books, positivity, the glass is half full, it's not half empty. Tried to get myself away from negative people, tried to think positive thoughts, suffered from depression, on medications, tried everything, counseling. Tried so many different things, and it helped, but I never felt like I got to the root of the problem. And I started listening to Evolve Ventures, amazing. And then I did a free coaching with Bianca and thought, what could it hurt? It's free, right? Oh my gosh, that day changed my life. I blurted out to Bianca things that I had never even really thought about myself. And I ended up setting up coaching with her. And I know so many of us say, oh, we can't afford coaching. But let me tell you, that coffee that you drink, that cupcake that you have, those cookies that you buy, that restaurant you go to, all those little things to make you feel better, you can take all of that and put it aside and invest in yourself. Use that money to invest in you, because you don't need those cookies to feel happy anymore. You don't need those restaurants to feel happy anymore. When you know how to be happy yourself, how to make yourself happy. And it's not all great, every day is fine, but I can now acknowledge things. I can acknowledge why I feel the way I do, and I can work through it without having to feel like there is no help. People are great. I definitely recommend Evolve Ventures and Bianca.
When I had Dairy Queen yesterday, it was phenomenal. It was
Mhm.
wonderful. I went for a
Gotta have those
drive,
things.
started downpouring, and Aries and I were in the car, and I'm like, thank God I forgot to bring my umbrella inside because the
I was
umbrella
gonna
was
say it's
there, and I was
annoying.
like, I love when I'm lazy. But it's we're not saying don't have these things. We are saying you need to have the right balance. And when
Mhm.
you are more focused on pleasure than you are on growth, this is why so many of us are suffering. It's why so many of us are really struggling, because we're just trying to numb
Yeah.
instead of actually trying to make change. And I get it. We don't think it's possible. So it's easier to numb than it is to get hurt by having to make changes.
Mhm.
I fully understand it. I have been there. And I also know what the other side of it looks like. And one of the hardest things to do is you and I both know this, but like, I think from a personal level, I've experienced this at a deeper level than you have, of radically challenging the not enough belief and the not lovable
Yeah.
belief. Most of us, like, quote unquote, take time off and take a summer off and whatever because we're trying to placate that. You know, it's like, I don't want anyone to know that I don't feel good enough. So I'm going to go do the fun thing. I'm going to go to the barbecue. I'm going to go to the event, even though I hate all of these people, or I don't feel loved here, or I have a terrible time every time I go. We're trying to just,
Yeah.
we're trying to placate and numb and suppress the negative feelings that we have. And I get it. And you are hurting yourself so much by doing that, because in the long run, you are going to live a life that is unfulfilling and that was not true to yourself.
Mhm.
So again, we are not saying don't have fun. We are not saying do not go do enjoyable things. We are saying, are you doing these enjoyable things to mask the fact that you are deeply unhappy? Because
Mhm.
if that's the case, you're losing. And I know that's hard to hear, but it's the truth. And I can only say it because I did it too. I did it. I've been in a lot of pain, physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual. I've gotten myself hurt so many times because I wanted pleasure more than I wanted to face myself in the mirror.
Mhm.
And it is not this daunting experience that we're making it sound. You do it at your own pace and at your own rate. And having people that can guide you in that, it really makes the difference. It really allows you to do this experience in a way that you can know for sure that change is going to happen because you're sitting in front of someone who can help you through it.
Definitely. Well, one of the things that I want to bring to the table of this conversation, if you'll play with me in this, is that truth be told, when we do that, when we take summers off, right? I'm not just literally talking about the summer, right? And from a seasonal standpoint, although you can definitely apply this aspect. I do think that this podcast episode is communicating to a concept of life when you take a quote unquote break from something. You take the summer off, you take a season off of doing actually the work. When you do that, you're unconsciously communicating to yourself that you can't handle these hard things. And when hard things come up, that you're not resilient enough, you're not lovable enough, you're not worthy enough to work through them or to cultivate the skill sets that we all
Yeah.
need to move through the challenging times and transform ourselves in the challenging times. So for example, if you and I were just fair example, right? If you and I were to take a summer off, i.e. a season off of podcasting, right? Because let's say,
LOL.
for example, our our life got too overwhelming, too busy. We were doing too much and we wanted to kind of snip the rose bush, let's say, right? But truth be told, the unconscious thing that's truly happening is that we are in a oh shit standpoint of we
Mm.
have bitten off more than we can chew at our current capacity. And all of these things in our life are overwhelming the heck out of us. If we just hit the red button and we take the quote unquote summer off from podcasting, what are we not going to cultivate as a skill set? We're not going to be able to teach ourselves how to navigate the load more effectively, how to develop the emotional resilience that comes as a result of saying, you know what, I don't know how to do this, and I'm going to try.
I want to be very mindful. We are not saying do not take breaks, do not take rest, do not take R&R. The
Yep.
lack of those things is what requires us to need these massive pieces of time off.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Think of like bodybuilders, for example, right? They
Mhm.
go to the extreme for 16 weeks. Most of them need a couple of months off after that because their
Yeah.
body can't handle it. If you were to just focus on health long term, you don't need to take 2, 3 months off so that your mental capacity can handle it. You take
Mhm.
a couple of days off for rest and recovery, right? So that you can heal and come back. But there's a big difference between rest and intentional rest versus I'm too overwhelmed and I can't handle this and I need to completely stop and
Right.
come back in a month or so.
Because you're giving up on yourself, you're giving up on the
Yes.
possibility, you're giving up on the hope, you're giving up on your own faith, you're giving up on the belief that you can work through and develop the scaffolding that will support you through the challenging times. Like truth be told, like yeah,
100%.
that, like the momentum is built in the small. That's why habits are so powerful. And that's why where we are in our life are a culmination of the compound effect, i.e., the momentum of our habits, whether or not we chose to show up with them or whether or not we chose to take a summer off of them.
Mm,
And let's be real, that's in our mental, physical, spiritual, digital, social health,
emotional.
emotional health. That's all of the day to day decisions that we make of like, just think about like, where are you taking a summer off right now? Is it in that you're not resting your body on the day to day in the way that it needs? Is it you taking you and I had talked about like mobility and how that's always challenging to do, but it's always beneficial. Are you taking a summer off in this metaphor off mobility? Okay. Every single time that you choose not to do that, you're losing momentum, i.e., you're losing the benefit that's gained by that. Are you taking a summer off of self-care, right? Every single time
Mm.
I had this time, and this is a tiny example, but I had a like my toenail had chipped. I had like painted them blue. And like every single day, crap you not, like this, but this happened. This was where I was taking a summer off for myself. There was like 5 days that passed to where that little toenail chip, I didn't do anything about it. So that was my taking a summer off of my own little aspect of self-care
Self-care.
of like that thing, and this is where that perfectionism that like I tried to be like, "Yeah, that's fine, like that is life," right? Like think about like this is a chip and I'm gonna wear it and whatever. But like that tiny little thing, truth be told, it bothered me.
What?
It bothered me. And so after 5 days, I was like, you know what? I am done with taking this summer off because I was losing
LOL.
momentum in what aspect of my life? It was self care and self respect. I was losing momentum and self respect every single time I saw that chip. It bothered me. And then I tried to tell myself a story that it didn't. And so this concept can apply to momentum building in those tiny little areas or those bigger areas of career, of spiritual aspects, of fulfillment, of family, whatever that is for you. Someone's taking a summer off somewhere, and truth be told, I think that it is our responsibility to help you all see where you're taking a summer off, and truth be told, help you understand that there is such a
Mm.
downside if that continues. So hopefully this episode helped to honor the challenge that we all face when it comes to taking that summer off, that metaphorical summer. And hopefully it also helps to inspire you to go paint that toenail. For lack of better words.
I feel very called out at you talking about my mobility. Like that was
Interesting.
that was unwarranted and unnecessary.
Hey, I appreciate your vulnerability, and
Oh,
it is what it
Jesus,
is.
and kindly shut up.
And no, and kindly honor yourself. Honor yourself. That's all I gotta
Oh,
say.
Jesus. What's your episode suggestion?
You can tell how insecure B is right now because she's like, shoot, I didn't realize how much of a summer off I was taking.
Oh,
Um,
it's so bad.
my episode suggestion, it's hilarious, is 235 Motivation Monday, the power of regret. Hey, that's why, truth be told, like
Listen.
there's something like that for me too, everywhere, so I'm
Okay.
not
Here's
innocent in that.
I did just like change my entire schedule up again though to make sure I can do mobility. So I do just want to put that there. I practice what I
Hey,
preach. I
at a
practice
girl.
what I preach.
Facts.
Um Mine is 296, how to be more in control of your feelings. LOL. I laugh it through. I make jokes at myself. Can you guys tell?
That's great. No, hey, I'm actually really happy to hear about that
Oh.
regarding mobility schedule because truth be told, we do not talk about stuff that we're not literally living, right? So it's huge. All right,
All
y'all.
right, everyone. We hope you enjoyed this episode. We hope that you feel empowered by our gentle little call out, and
Bye,
we'll see you next time. Bye, everyone.
everyone.